People in my life are disappearing. It began subtly, so much so that at first I didn't even notice. The little things were easy to dismiss. Missed calls, forgotten appointments, faces I couldn't quite place in my memory. I chalked it up to stress, overwork, and the general fog of everyday life. But looking back now, I realize it wasn't just me being forgetful. Something was happening, something I can't explain. My name is Eric, and until a few months ago, I lived an unremarkable life. I had a steady job as a graphic designer, a close-knit group of friends, and a family I loved deeply. Nothing extraordinary, but it was mine. The first person I noticed missing was my coworker. We worked together on several projects, and though we weren't particularly close, she was the kind of person you couldn't help but notice. She had this infectious laugh and a knack for making even the most mundane tasks enjoyable. One Monday morning, I arrived at the office to find her desk empty. Her personal items, family photos, a little cactus she called Steve, were gone. "Where's Sarah?" I asked my manager, Tom. "Sarah?" He looked genuinely confused. "Yeah, Sarah. She works on the same team as me. Blonde hair, always brings those homemade cookies to the office." Tom shook his head. "I think you're mistaken, Eric. We've never had a Sarah on this team." I laughed nervously, convinced he was messing with me. But as I asked around, the reactions were the same. No one remembered Sarah. Her name wasn't on the team roster, her email address didn't exist, and even our chat logs were gone. It was as if she'd never been there at all. I convinced myself it was some bizarre prank, or maybe even an early sign of burnout. But then it happened again. A few weeks later, my friend Mark vanished. Mark and I had been friends since college. We bonded over our love of horror movies and bad pizza, and we met up at least once a month for a game night. I texted him one Friday to confirm our plans. When he didn't respond, I called. The number was disconnected. Confused, I drove to his apartment. The door was locked, and there was a "for rent" sign in the window. I called the landlord, pretending to be interested in the property, and was told it had been vacant for months. When I tried to bring it up with my other friends, they stared at me like I was crazy. "Mark? Dude, we don't know anyone named Mark," my friend Jake said, laughing. "You're joking, right? We've been friends with him for years." Jake frowned. "Eric, are you feeling okay? Maybe you need to see someone." I left the conversation shaken. How could they not remember Mark? We had photos together, memories of nights spent laughing and arguing over board games. Yet when I checked my phone, my gallery, and even old social media posts, he wasn't there. It was as if he'd been erased. Over the next few weeks, the disappearances became more frequent. One by one, people I knew, coworkers, friends, distant relatives, began vanishing. Their names, faces, and the memories attached to them faded from everyone else's minds. But not mine. I kept a journal, desperately trying to document everyone before they were gone. Each entry felt like a futile attempt to hold on to them, like grasping at smoke. The strangest part was that no one else seemed to notice. To everyone around me, life carried on as usual. Conversations, routines, and even the city itself seemed to subtly shift to accommodate the absences. One night, I stayed up late, poring over my journal. I was determined to find a pattern, a reason for what was happening. That's when I noticed something chilling. In every group photo I had, there was a gap, a space where someone should have been. It wasn't just an empty spot. The alignment of the people, the way they stood, suggested someone had been there, but they were gone. I grabbed an old photo album from my closet, flipping through page after page. The same gaps appeared, stretching back years. Had this been happening all along? Things escalated when my sister, Emily, disappeared. Emily was my anchor, the one person I could always count on. She was fiercely protective and never hesitated to call me out when I needed it. I called her one morning to talk about everything that had been happening. Her number rang endlessly before going to voicemail. I drove to her house, only to find it empty. The mailbox was stuffed with old letters, the garden overgrown. When I asked my parents, they looked at me with blank expressions. "Emily?" my mom repeated, her brow furrowing. "Who's that?" My chest tightened. "Your daughter, My sister. My dad shook his head. Eric, you're our only child. It felt like the ground was crumbling beneath me. How could they forget her? She'd been there for birthdays, holidays, every milestone in my life. I became obsessed with finding answers. I stopped going to work, cut off contact with my remaining friends, and spent every waking moment researching disappearances, memory loss, and anything remotely related. That's when I stumbled upon a forum buried deep within the web. The users there spoke about similar experiences, people vanishing from their lives without explanation, memories fading, and the eerie sense of being the only one who noticed. One user, Watcher7, claimed to have uncovered the truth. They're not gone, he wrote. They're taken. I messaged him, desperate for more information. He responded quickly. They come at night. They take people who are close to you, feeding on the connections, the memories. The more you remember, the more you'll notice them. Be careful. They'll come for you too. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every whisper of the wind set my nerves on edge. Around 3 a.m. I heard it, a soft shuffling sound coming from the hallway. I grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the noise. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and the house felt colder than it should have been. At the end of the hall, I saw it. A figure stood there, tall and thin, its body cloaked in shadow, its head tilted unnaturally as if observing me. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice trembling. It didn't respond. Instead, it raised a hand, impossibly long fingers stretching toward me. I felt a pull, like something was reaching into my mind, sifting through my memories. I turned and ran, locking myself in my bedroom. The whispers started then, soft at first but growing louder. They spoke in a language I didn't understand, but their intent was clear. When I woke up, the whispers were gone, and so was another person. My journal was missing pages, entire entries scratched out or torn away. I'm alone now. Everyone I cared about is gone, erased as if they never existed. The gaps in my photos have grown larger, the memories harder to hold on to. I can feel them watching me, waiting for the moment when I finally forget myself.